Hi, and welcome to the Church Communications Podcast with Katie and Daryl. So tonight, our sponsor is Tithely, and Tithely exists to help churches, local churches, thrive by providing mobile giving and church engagement apps that connect people with people that are on the go. So they're excited about their church app platform that they created to help you engage with your church. The Tithely Church app enables members to take interactive sermon notes, listen to messages on the go, access small group material, check the prayer list, engage with your real-time church newsfeed, give, and much more. You can go to churchcommunications.com/free app. Again, that is churchcommunications.com/free app to check out this amazing offer. You can get your church app free for a full year from Tithely. No setup, no monthly, for a full year. Again, that is churchcommunications.com/free app. And we just want to thank them again for being our sponsor of the podcast and our group this month. So let's get on with the show. Hey, Daryl, how's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
We're snowed in here in Nashville, Tennessee.
We are definitely snowed in, and
which means we got 3 inches. I know that to some people is laughable because they're like, "What?
We
you
got
only
3
got
inches?
3 inches?" And but that's a lot, to us, because we have maybe one snow plow in the entirety of Davidson County.
We do.
And we may have one salt truck. So it just takes a long time, for our people to get through things. So hi, Stuart. Hi, other people. Josh. Hi. Good to see everybody. So yeah, if you're listening to our podcast, let's just do a reminder. If you're listening to our podcast via iTunes or YouTube, we do this podcast live in our Facebook group every week. So when we're constantly interrupted and we're saying, "Oh, but this," that's because we're interacting with people during our Facebook Live. So
exactly,
a little reminder there.
Yes. And also a reminder that coming up on April 19th to 20th, we have the Big Idea Conference. So you can check it out at bigideanashville.com. If you haven't done that, you can sign up. It's a 2-day conference for church communicators, only $149, and registration ends on March 31st. So you want to make sure
only 250 spots.
250 spots. We're done. We're sold out at that point. So you want to go ahead and sign up if you haven't done that yet. So yes, we are braving the snow here in Nashville, Tennessee. I am going on. My son has not been to school since Thursday. We'll be out of school tomorrow again. So let's just say
so much fun.
We've milked every creative idea we can for a 5-year-old. So there we go.
But it's probably good that he's not at school because the flu, right? The flu is an epidemic this year. So
you're right about that.
Probably a great idea. Thanks, Adam, for dropping the bigideanashville.com link in the show notes. What's great, or in the comments there. What's great is at the Big Idea Nashville. I was just thinking about this earlier, how many women we're going to have speaking. And
yes, we are.
I'm just really pumped about having so many women who are in church leadership speak at our conference. And that's going to be awesome. And so a good portion of our group are women. I would say it's really 50-50, honestly, according to the group insight. So I'm really excited that we can do that for our conference as well. So
yeah, that's going to be super awesome. So today we thought we would dive into something. We know that Adam on our other broadcasts do Ask Adam. We know Adam dived into this, but we may kind of dive into it as well. And that is Facebook newsfeed changes. I know that you probably have some point have seen this in the group. You've probably read a blog post from one or more different outlets about the fact that Facebook is changing the newsfeed, specifically impacting publishers, i.e. people who have Facebook pages.
Yes.
So today we want to talk about what does it actually really mean, and not only what do they mean when they say that, and then what does it really mean to you in an applicable sense, and then how do you, I want to say get around that, but how do you reconfigure your strategy based around the changes that are coming?
Yeah.
So there you go. So the first thing I think is really healthy to do in situations like this is not read the third-hand information you're getting from other people, but actually read what Facebook actually published. So today we actually walked through and we actually went through the actual Facebook, and I'll put this in the show notes, the actual published, here's what we're doing from Facebook's actual newsroom. And in it, they actually embed a post from Mark Zuckerberg. And in there, Zuckerberg says, And I think this is it's really important you kind of understand some of these things. And he's talking basically, a little context here, he's basically saying, hey, we've noticed that people aren't really having the interactions that we want. And so here's what he says. He says, based on this, and that's the idea of not having interactions that we want, we're making major changes how we build Facebook. I'm changing the goal that I give our product teams from focusing on helping you find relevant content. This is important. He's shifting from helping you find relevant content to helping you have more meaningful social interactions. And he goes on to say, now I want to be clear, by making these changes, I expect people to spend on the time people spend on Facebook and some measures of engagement to go down. So he's saying that he expects people to use Facebook less, and that some of our typical measures that you and I have for engagement to actually go down. But I also expect the time you spend on Facebook to be more valuable. And if we do the right thing, I believe that will be good for our community and our overall business in the long-term sense as well. So I find that fascinating that he's going to tell you, hey, look, I'm not helping you find relevant content. I'm helping you find relevant interactions. And then also in regards to that, he's also stating, I expect people to actually interact less and spend less time on Facebook itself.
Yeah, which I think is good and healthy. I think we live our lives by that red dot a little too much. I was looking at my stats, my battery stats earlier, trying to decide if I should get a new battery for $29 at Apple. Yep. And it said I'd spent 2 hours looking at Facebook on my phone today. And I was like, what were you doing, Katie? Just sitting there refreshing, seeing if you got a red dot or not. And I was like, why am I living by this red dot? Yeah. And so I think this is good. I think that, but at the same time, a lot of my news feed, my friends aren't always the most positive. So that's why I follow a lot more some pages, like churches and whatever, because I feel like that's a little more positive. So I'm interested to see how they will balance this.
Yeah. So I think they actually, and then they go on to say actually in the actual Facebook post itself, is they say, with this update, this is Facebook corporately speaking, we will prioritize posts that spark conversations and meaningful interactions between people. To do this, we will predict which posts you might want to interact with your friends about and show these posts higher in the feed. Yeah. These are posts that inspire back and forth discussion in the comments and posts that you might want to share and react to, whether the post is from a friend seeking advice, a friend asking questions, or a trip, or a news article or video prompting lots of discussion. So you notice the interesting thing about this is they're not talking about how many people actually viewed it, how long the views were on a video. They're talking about how people actually interacted with it. And specifically, they mentioned numerous times commenting on this stuff. So they're actually looking for actual discussions that go on in the content.
And I think they're looking also probably for threaded discussion too. Yes. I think just having a comment on it is whatever. And also remember, you can't ask for comments anymore. That's engagement, babe. We're going to talk about that a little bit further later. Yeah. But you can't say, comment on this video so it gets seen by all your friends. You can't do that. Right. That's not going to work. And also, even if they did, it wouldn't be a threaded discussion, So I think they're really looking for people who are having in-depth conversations. So I love, our Facebook Live now, it's technically through our page and we're sharing it over to our group. And the reason we're doing that is because first off, our page is easily found. So if people aren't in our group, they can find it. But also, we share it to the group specifically because obviously all of you have great conversations on it later, and you're having good conversation now while you're watching. You're having conversations with us. And so I don't think they're going to push us down. Actually, we've seen our engagement go up. Oddly, since this happened. So we're at 31 people watching right now, and normally we're at 6. And so we've definitely seen our numbers go up, whereas most pages have probably seen it go down.
Yeah, and in fact, if you go further on to that Facebook article, they say, they blatantly answer the question, what type of post will get higher in the newsfeed, and they say page posts, they're specifically talking about page posts. Page posts that generate conversation between people will show higher in the newsfeed. Mm-hmm. For example, live videos often lead discussion on Facebook viewers. In fact, live videos get on average 6 times as many interactions as regular videos.
Yes. So if live video is not already a daily thing in your church's like habit, your social media habit, it needs to be one. And so we're working towards that and trying to figure out ways to get more and more live video into our stream. And, you know, it doesn't have to be overly produced. We don't have a studio at our church. We're a mega church and we don't have one of those. Nope. And I go in with my iPhone and I film, you know, just a regular old iPhone, and I film in a big OtterBox case, and I film our pastor or I film a minister, and I set up in a little tripod, and I'm gonna start hopefully filming in vertical video. I'm gonna try to order a vertical monopod, but I'm just excited that this is so authentic and off the cuff and not produced, and I think that's going to be interesting. I think that's what we're going towards. You know, I think you can make things look good, and you should frame things correctly and whatnot. But I also think that I'm excited about it just being more real in person. So,
Patrick asked the question: how do you facilitate live video on your primary page, but invite another into the feed, such as this conversation?
Yeah, we just share it. So like Daryl and I talk about it before we do it. We're like, okay, who's going to share this over? So we start the feed on our page and then we share it over into the group. Yep. And so you can do that same thing. So we're going to talk about groups probably too at the end of this conversation, like why you should have a group for your church and that kind of thing. I know people asked a lot of questions about that. And so, I think what's the best time for doing Facebook Live video? Anytime. Anytime is the right time.
Yeah, Zach. I think now I will say this. I personally think there's a little bit what I call the golden hour, which is like I think it used to be a TV term called the golden hour. That's between 7 and 9 at night, or you would say actually maybe between 8 and 10 at night, depending on your time zone. I usually think sometimes that works the best because people have that second or third screen open when they're watching TV or watching whatever. That typically we found has worked best. I mean, we've tried like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's worked as well. We've also one time did a noon. We did a prayer thing right before the election, and we
talked it up.
We talked it up. That's true. We did. That's true. We did say that was coming down the pipe. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked up this prayer thing, this live prayer thing for the nation on election day, and got probably the most live viewers we ever had during that live guided prayer time. And so and that's a super cultural thing. I think that's what's important too, is to make sure you're staying like not on trend, but like on trend. Have you ever gone to trends.google.com? You can see all the trends right now that people are searching for, and see if your pastor can't talk about that on Facebook Live, some of those trends, even if it's like a sport thing. I mean, people love that. So I think that's like a great thing to have him talk about or to blog about or whatever. So,
yeah. So one of the other things that we've been looking at in terms of like, okay, so whatever information can we glean from this other than what Facebook has posted is we found an interview there's a wonderful newsletter called Stratechery, and in there they interview Ben Thompson, the writer, interviews the VP of Facebook newsfeed. So this is the guy who's over newsfeeds. And it's interesting, by the way, he's over newsfeeds, not ads. So those are actually two separate things. But in there, he's asked the question about how is this different from past changes? In other words, we all know that in 2016 they did changes. I think they did like in 2014. So they've done various changes. And one of the things he says in this is that, again, this is about social interactions between people and less about consuming content. They're trying to move you away from being passive to being active. In fact, that's one of the things they're worried about is that we've become so passive with our use of Facebook that we're not really walking away actually better. In fact, one of the research says is from a social standpoint, the more you actually interact with Facebook and have discussions on Facebook, the better off you feel versus just passively consuming information. And one of the things that they've kind of realized that's kind of led to you being passive is the fact that they kind of look at Facebook looks at inventory in two different ways. Personal inventory, and that is like, think of it like all the personal stories, and then stories from pages. And what's happened, as they said, is basically that we've had a tremendous amount of consumption of more page stories coming influx into the inbox versus personal. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to rebalance it out. So the fact it's a little more like this versus it being one over the other. So, I mean, and that's literally what they say. I mean, they say the growth of inventory has been really strong over the years, referring to page inventory, but it's been so much faster than public content that's been for friend content. This makes sense. The average page that you and I operate posts more often than your average friend does. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get
I mean, people are scheduling stuff,
Yes.
on pages, but they're not, obviously scheduling stuff on their personal stuff.
Yep. So again, that's what Facebook is basically telling you is that they see us posting a lot of stuff on our pages, and they're trying to balance those two things out, which is why they would essentially downgrade. And they also, by the way, say, Katie mentions this, and Katie, when you want to walk the audience through when we say, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this, engagement bait. What is that? When we say that term, what do we mean by that?
Okay, so I know that Facebook defined engagement bait as basically asking for the user to do something. So I love that they used the word goad, to goad someone.
Yes.
Which I didn't even know was a word. Anyways, into not meaningful interaction. So you're basically like trying to like make them do something. So you're saying like tag your friend, comment on this post, share it if you like it. Or like, share this picture if you love Jesus, that kind of thing. So they're trying to make those posts go away. So they're going to actually continue demoting those posts and those pages. So the pages will even get less likes if they're doing something like that. And so I don't think that, they just introduced polls on Facebook pages. Like someone shared a really great poll in our Facebook page, community earlier. And it said, when it snows, do you feel like Linus or Lucy? And I thought that was really funny because Linus was super excited and Lucy was like mad. And you know what? I don't think that is necessarily a bad use of the poll feature. I think that's probably exactly what they were expecting. I don't think that's goading people into a not meaningful interaction, but getting someone to tag someone just for the heck of it because, you don't want to forget about this event tomorrow, tag your friend. I feel like that's going to go away and be less and less. And I'm sure you've seen the people that have the recipe pages that are like share and comment because Facebook's trying to keep me down. The man's trying to keep me down. That's going away too. So, which is good. I don't think there's anything bad about that. And the fact that people are being elevated, that's great. Like I want humanity to be elevated over a corporation or a majority. That's what we should be celebrating that. What's really cool is that, this is almost like a repeating of ministry history. Mike Glenn, our pastor, loves to say that the first Reformation was, what did he say? The first Reformation was, giving the word back to the people, but the second Reformation will be giving the ministry back to the people. So the first phase of Facebook was like, was giving like power to pages, and then the second phase of Facebook is giving the power back to the people or something. And that's just the truth. Like we're giving the ministry back to the people. That's what all churches want to do. We want to give ministry back to the people. So Tony will ask the question: only the members of your group will be notified when you do a Facebook Live event. No, not necessarily. Now, if you're doing the live in your group specifically, then yes, of course. Like they're the only ones who can see it. You can exit out that question. But if you're doing it on your page, then you'll see a lot more. So Michael says, I hope they reduce the amount of videos that are just a still image recorded for 15 seconds. I have seen them. I actually tried it one time to see if that would like help us. It didn't matter at all. But it was like, I was like, let's just see what happens. And it was really silly. So yeah, I think that'll probably also be going away, Michael. I agree. One of the tangent there. I can't remember what it was about.
Well, no, we're talking about engagement bait. And one of the things I find interesting is that the vice president of Facebook has also admitted that engagement for him, or for them for that matter, is an ambiguous term. I mean, he says, I think that for news feeds, we've always used different types of metrics to try to measure the value we create for people. No metric or measure of value is perfect. They all have trade-offs. And we've tried to iterate those measures over time. I think it's more sophisticated, and I believe hopefully healthier thing for us to focus on, that being more meaningful social interactions.
Right. So with real people.
With real people.
Yes.
So, I mean, and he goes on to say, it's important to be clear. Let's start with that's actually practically happening here. When we start to focus more and ranking value more, things like long comments or comments relative to how much time somebody spent watching a video, for instance, you're going to see the composition of your newsfeed shift. When we do that, you're going to see people's behavior shift. So this is really, at the end of the day, they're trying to do behavior modification. They're trying to change the way their people who consume Facebook are behaving, because there's what they see is basically the side effects of.
And you know that they have to have a whole lot of stuff like research. Like
They
they are the massive controllers of big data, and so they have to see like maybe how depressed or something people have gotten since like.
Well, they've released that data. They've released the data. It's on their newsroom. They've released the data. It's that
it's changed people's brains and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
what's interesting is I grew up with social media. Like, right. I mean, luckily it wasn't like a huge thing. We had MySpace and we caused some trouble on there, but like, I didn't really get Facebook till college, and I just, I can't imagine like. It's got to be so much more worse. Anyway, that's besides the point.
Yeah, you're right, and I'm trying to pull up here real quick. They actually have this really great section on Facebook. It's called Hard Questions. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. So it's a category where they ask like, should be afraid of facial recognition technology? Is spending time on social media bad for us? If your kids are online, are they going to be okay? Like it's a really interesting, like I applaud them for trying this, which I think is a kind of an interesting thing to do. So you can, you can check it out if you just search for, it's on Facebook's newsroom. You can see that they have a category called Hard Questions.
We'll put a link in the show notes tomorrow so you can have it.
Yeah. So
that's interesting stuff.
Let's get down to the brass tacks though. If I'm listening to this episode, I'm sitting there going, great, you guys are telling me all the ways it's going to change. What do you want me to do?
I'm still scared.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't be scared. I think that's probably like, it's fine. It's nothing the church hasn't done before.
Here's what I'm not going to tell you. And I said this on Twitter earlier today. I'm not going to tell you to create more engaging content. Okay? Because that's a cop-out. I'm going to call it what it is. If all I do is tell you, just create more engaging content, that's exactly what people said during the last 4 or 5 times they changed the newsfeed. Just create more engaging content.
Then people wouldn't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter.
Yeah,
and like,
it wouldn't matter.
Clearly, they're changing the algorithm so that it doesn't even matter if your content was engaging to begin with.
This is a way saying that is such an oversimplification of the actual issue that we're dealing with. So you won't hear us say that. So the way I look at it is like this, and I think Katie has some really, wonderful ideas on how to make this work for you. But the way I look at it is this: I think of it like a pipeline. Here's the end user. I want the end user to see the content. This is the quote unquote engaging content I've created. Question is, how do you deal with the webcam here? How do I get it from point A to point B? Mm-hmm. How do I do that? How do I get that content from one person, from me to that person? So Katie, how do you recommend somebody goes about doing that? How do they recommend that they start engage? So how do they work in this new system?
Okay, I think that you're going to have to enable your people to do the work for you, and that's hard. Like, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, this is going to be so easy for you, because it's not, and you may just have to take it upon yourself to be that voice. Daryl and I have talked about that many times. Like, should I become the face of the church online? Yep. Is that okay? Is that, acceptable if our senior pastor can't always be doing it? And so that may have to be you, but here's some good options. So obviously create a Facebook group. Facebook groups are not going away. They're not going down. I don't think any of this is talking about Facebook groups interactivity getting off your page, like off your news feed. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Mark's made it very clear that he thinks groups are meaningful interactions. Yeah. And so creating a group, I think, is a great place to start. Now, if you create a group for your whole church versus just a ministries in your church, that's up to you. Right now, we're creating them for whole churches if they're under 500, and then we're creating them for ministries if your church is over 500. And I'm working through, like, what do we do with our church? Like, our church is like 5,000, I guess. And what do we do in a situation where where I want our whole church to get a message, perhaps, should I create a whole group for them? You know, I'm working through that. Like, what kind of guidelines could I create? What do I need to do in order to empower them to get this knowledge? But in the meantime, while I'm trying to figure that out, here's some other options. So we have a group for our choir. Our choir is 150 strong, and our choir is well connected. People in the choir are like in a million other ministries too, because they love the church and they're dedicated to it. Literally, you are preaching to the choir, right? So what I've done this past year is I started sharing all of our events and a lot of our content that I want to be seen by others to that Facebook group. And I'm going to do that even more this year. I've got to sit down with our marketing director. We keep getting disconnected this last couple weeks because, you know, flu and stuff. So, but I want to get them even more involved in church, like marketing decisions, because using them during Christmas was huge. So I got the entire church choir to say they were interested in a Facebook event. I just went down there and I was like, hey guys, can everyone take out your phone and hit you're interested in the Christmas concert? And they were like, yeah. So everybody did it. And some people who didn't know how to do it brought me their phone and let me do it for them. And we ended up getting a really amazing amount of reach. I'm gonna say it was like probably at least 80K just amount of reach without paying a dime for it, by getting so many people to hit their interest in an event at the same time. And so because of that, it snowballed. And so I'm going to use our choir as a street team. And so a street team is kind of a lame thing, but it's using individuals' profiles. It's giving the ministry back to the people and saying, I need you to tell people about the church, and not just the church, but I need you to tell people about Jesus. I need you to have meaningful gospel conversations on your own page. Right. And then, you know, because our pastor too talks about the future of the church isn't really a building anymore. It's really about congregations of people meeting together. And so how can we empower people to do that more in their own social profiles, online connections that lead to offline connections? So so those are some ideas. So, and also enabling your other ministers, to do Facebook Live, especially. So I love Michelle Dyer, who's one of our, she's a place coach at our church. And she came to me and she was like, Katie, I really want to do Facebook Live, but I am so scared of doing Facebook Live. She was like, I really think that, you know, because she teaches classes at the church for like hundreds of people, and she's not scared. But she was like, I'm just worried that, you know, people that knew me from like second grade who don't know me anymore would be like judging me or whatever. And I was like, you know what? The more than your fear is the fact that those people need the gospel. And so how can I help you to get over this fear? So I met with her and did her first Facebook Live with her, and talked with her about how I was like, this is how you can set it up. Like, just put your phone in like a location that's not super awkward. And then have your notes beside you, and then just say, okay, I'll upload my notes to Dropbox and share them with you at the end. And she did that. And she had so many amazing gospel conversations with people. And so that to me is a meaningful engagement, a meaningful conversation. You know, that Facebook loves, and it came directly from our profile rather than our page. And to me, that's worth its weight in gold than it is. And I know that metric is not as measurable, perhaps, because I may not always know of it and I may not always see it. But to me, that's worth more than how many likes I have on our Facebook page. Yeah, and I'm not saying that metrics should go out the window. Let me be very clear. I am. I'm just kidding. But what we are saying is that the metrics that you've always used are going to have to be reconfigured and rethought. The idea that you basically base your page solely off organic reach or paid reach, boosted, whatever you want to call it, and the views, and then that's what we're going to live by those stats. You can't do that anymore, really. I mean, that's really what's going to happen here. And I know that if you are in a church with an executive pastor who thinks things very numbers oriented, that may be a little bit of a heart palpitation for them. It's hard, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be okay. It's going to be worth it. And I think the more you can give people the content via other channels and have them natively share the content to their own Facebook profiles, right? So that
feels like it's actually genuine content from them, the better off you're going to be, because it's specifically, here's the one reason why I think the choir example works so well, is when you could find a group inside of your church that's super proud of what they do. That's what makes the choir group so, like, I think works so well for us, is like they're very proud of their work. I mean, they love what they do and they want you to, they're super proud of it. So when you find ministries or people who are involved in ministry that are very excited and proud of the work they do, and they want people to engage with it,
yeah,
those are your ambassadors. Those are the people who are like, yes, sign me up. I'm there. I'll do that. And the cool thing about that is that's their stuff. So in other words, it's different than like you could take and give away like a clip of your pastor's sermon and say, hey, everybody, upload this to your Facebook. And you could do that. And that could work on one level. But if it's something that they've done and that they themselves are a part of, in other words, they're on the screen, they're a part of the choir.
What if they're recapping the sermon?
Yes, exactly. What if they're recapping the sermon? Then all of a sudden, is you created this trust factor. Yeah, a trust factor and a conversation factor that, and by the way, here's the thing about this is this is going to require, again, I think we may have said this is going to require what we call the bad pancake theory, or a bad pancake practice, which is that if you ever made pancakes, what do you know about the first pancake you make? It's horrible. Okay. Because you don't know how hot the oven is. But once you figure out how hot the oven is, you start getting better making pancakes.
And you make beautiful pancakes.
Make beautiful pancakes. But people are going to do it the first time and they're going to totally botch it up. I've said this before. One of the things I think is hilarious was that when we first did Facebook Live with our pastor, he'd yell cut in the middle of it. And I'm like, dude, there ain't no cutting. You're live.
Can't start over. And literally, my phone messed up 3 or 4 times with him on Monday morning when I was like starting. It stopped. It wouldn't start. Like it just kept freezing up. And I was like, hold on, let me restart my phone or whatever. These things are bound to happen. Like mistakes are just going to happen. But that's okay. Just keep trying. I believe in you. We can do this. So,
Isabel has a question. She's like,
yeah.
She goes, we have a protocol or document that you teach your choir group? Did you have a document, or did you just?
I think no document.
You actually went and just met with them, right? Didn't you?
I went and met with them and literally walked them through it. I intend to do that on a monthly basis. Somebody hold me to it. I should have put it in my goals. So because I think it was so effective. It was so effective, and to talk with them maybe about using Facebook Live and talking about not just what's going on in the choir, but what's going on in the church and the vision of our church and how it's changing, and all those things is amazing. And not just the church either, but I want them to talk about what is Jesus personally doing in their life right now, and have those conversations, because having those conversations online opens doors to conversations that you can have offline in ways that you will not know unless you try. Sorry.
I think you're right. I think one of the things that we kind of knew was coming down the pipe is that one of the things you're probably going to have to look at doing as a church is honestly giving away a little bit of your brand. And here's what I mean by that. Typically, the way that we've always done things is that a central house, i.e. you or somebody on your church staff, creates this branded content with the idea that somebody hopes to share it. What we're saying is people need to create their own content. That may mean you need to give them some of the tools to help them do that. That may be like giving them a copy of the church logo. That may be giving them some sort of creative assets of some sort of way, shape, or form to help them do that.
Right?
That's completely
like this can blow up in our faces. I know, having tight control is literally my favorite thing.
Yes.
But at the same time, we have got to be better at giving this ministry away. And so, it's just like anything else, in ministry. If you just keep doing it yourself, then who are you ministering to? I don't know.
Let's ask this question. So, let's say as you make this shift, and I said, as we make this shift, because we are going to
make this shift, and it's going to be hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's not going to be difficult. It's going to, but I think it's going to be totally worth it. And it aligns perfectly with our new mission and vision value, of our church.
It does. So let me ask you this. What are you going to put on the Facebook page?
Not a lot. Don't tell anyone.
So like if all of a sudden you're saying like,
Oh,
hey, take all the content away we want you posted, because we I mean, here's the other thing, by the way. If you want to do this, I say take that article, save it in your links, and then anytime somebody asks you to post something to the Facebook page, like something like promote this event, just send them the link and say it's not going to be worth it. So you now have ammunition to tell people no, okay, on that
like
aspect.
it doesn't work unless you put ad money behind it, and even then, ad money is probably still going to work because obviously Facebook's got to make money somehow. But I am more about the individual today. So I like that you're making a resource page for your social team, Stuart. I think that's going to be super helpful. And that might be something too that I work on. Just because I'm not sure people will understand, like in a group, if I'm sharing with them a picture, they're like, I can't hit share. I don't understand. I know that I could probably share it from our page and then have them share it, but I'm afraid that will still be considered not meaningful. So having a page might be a better option on the website, because then they'll have to go and do an action and then put it somewhere. So that's actually a really great idea, something that we might be doing as well. So Isabel, what'd she say? I've tried to set this up with our young adult community, giving them resources. The challenge I run into people view social media as a distraction, and how do we change that mindset? I don't think that's a bad mindset at all. Because I view it as a distraction as well. And I am the social media manager.
That's me to a T. Okay, so here's the deal, Isabel. What you have to, it's a great question. And I would say the way I approach it way I personally do it is helping them understand Facebook or social media to a certain degree is a necessary evil, in the sense that it's where the people are at. And so
like you got to go where the people are.
You got to go. You have to go. You've got to go where they're at. You've got to go where people are going to be. And I don't try to spend that much time on these channels, given the time suck that I know that it is, but I do it because I know that when I do it and we do it well, people are better for it.
Right.
And that's a hard one to deal with.
I think explaining to them, like I said earlier, that it's a place where you can start an online conversation to lead to an offline one. Basically, and that can be really, really simple. I like, don't even give them a script. Just challenge them maybe with one simple thing a week. So this one simple thing could be literally ask people, why can you be praying for them this week, and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, let me go back to the pages thing real quick. I think one of the things that when we talk about what do you do in your pages is I think making your page content more about people. And one of the things that Katie's emphasized that we do stuff that's more like Humans of New York.
Right. Tell stories, using pictures of real people at our church. And I'm still trying to find a photographer intern. So if any of you wonderful people want to move to Nashville, Tennessee and be my intern, I would love it.
But let me also say this. And I'm not trying to pat us on the back, but when I say this is if we can't find the intern, one of us is going to learn how to do photography, because we're going to have to make it happen, because we believe it's that important. But I think going back to saying focusing on people in regards to that page content, I think will be the kind of content we want to share long term.
Right. That's meaningful to me, is sharing a picture of a real person and telling a little bit of their story. So and that's also good for your page, because then that person gets tagged in that picture and they share it, and maybe they make it their profile picture because we're hoping it'll be a great picture. And to me, that will be more meaningful than anything. So basically, these questions that we're going to ask people are very Humans of New York. Definitely go and study the way he interviews people, because he literally just goes up to people on the street and asks them a question that's pretty deep or something, and he barely knows them. And so, and most of the time, and people are so willing to share. And of course, this is New York, so people are willing to share probably a lot more than people maybe in Tennessee. But I found that people are pretty willing. They want to help the church. And so if you explain to them what you're trying to do, and then say, okay, I just have one question for you. What is God teaching you right now in your life? And you can tell them it can be one word, or it can be a sentence or a paragraph. Like, what is God teaching you? And then I literally hand them my iPhone and I say, type it out, because I think sometimes people feel so embarrassed to really share what's on their heart. And a lot of times I will text my friends things that I can't tell them in person. And I'm like, okay, I feel like once you read and you see what you've said, you're going to feel a lot better about it. Of course, you can have like an actual conversation if that's more like up your speed. But I found that the phone thing worked really well for especially millennials that I was testing this out with our Kairos congregation. It just worked so much better for them. But of course, with old people, they'll be like, why are you handing me your phone? So like, what do you want me to do with this?
Exactly.
But and you don't have to take these photos with like an amazing camera portrait mode on your iPhone. Really does some amazing things these days. I want though the pictures not to be just at church, and I think that's my struggle with finding time to do it. Is saying I want to go off site and take these photos of people in real life, and that's going to be interesting. Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. All right, Kate, you got anything else on the subject, or we pretty much exhausted it?
We just ran it into the ground and stomped on it.
Totally did. Folks, thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget, go to bigideanashville.com because we are going to be hosting a conference. Our church is actually hosting a conference, and Katie and I are going to be there. We're going to be there April 19th and 20th.
And guess who else is going to be there? Facebook. So if you're like, I have so many more questions, please come. Please talk to Nona, who is an amazing woman. Also a pastor's wife. Like she's like the first lady of her church. So just an amazing woman of faith herself. And that's awesome. And so she's phenomenal. So I'm so excited to have people hear from her.
So we're gonna have staff from Facebook there. We've got some world-class web designers that are going to be there. We've got a whole truckload of people there. We only got 250 spots. Registration closes March 31st. You can get there for $149 today if you go to bigideanashville.com. Check it out. We've put the schedules posted there as well. So if you got questions, just hit us up on Facebook. We'd love to answer them. And you guys are amazing. Again, we love you guys as a community. Hey, if you're listening on iTunes, I want you to hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Or if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, hit the share button. Any of those things, options will work for us. You guys are great. And Katie and I are going to try to stay safe in the middle of the snowstorm.
Facebook, her name is Nona Jones.
Nona Jones. Yep. All right, guys. Take care. We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.